Welcome back to the Holmes Field Advantage. Man, it has been a little bit, and there has been a ton of stuff that has happened. There's a lot of stuff going on with the NFL that I didn't even get a chance to talk about that I don't even care because the NBA, I tell you what, the NBA has done a really good job of getting me back. A really exciting draft class, really excited free agency class, some exciting trades. I've said exciting 3 times, now 4. It's been pretty good. An amazing finals, one of the best finals we've seen in the last 5 years, I would say. Probably the best since 2019, in my opinion. But there's plenty of good things coming out of the NBA. We're going to wait just a couple of seconds to let some people trickle in. All right, let's get into it. You already know what we're going to talk about. I'm not even going to plug my stuff, all right? I usually plug SI. I plug the lead, which I also talked about the Wizards over there. I plug my Twitter. I'm not even going to plug that because we got stuff to do. I got stuff to do still tonight. It's draft day eve. We got a mock draft to get in and get out of here, but let's try and do this as fast as we can. Let's talk about the big boy trade. Woo! Kevin Durant. Sorry if it's a little echoey, by the way. I'm not in my usual setup back in Blacksburg. But obviously, there is a lot of exciting things going on with Kevin Durant. Over the last month, we've been wondering, is he going to go to San Antonio? Is he going to go to Houston? Well, he ended up going to Houston. The thing with this Durant trade that I like so much, that is so exciting for me, is I really, really like the investment that the Phoenix Suns made. If the plan to move on from Bradley Beal goes to full fruition and he agrees to go somewhere else, he could go to Miami. He could go, he could go anywhere. I mean, honestly, anywhere but Phoenix. It has just not worked out. I think Jalen Green is the perfect piece to step in. He's a young playmaker. I mean, obviously not a playmaker, but he makes plays with the ball in his hands. He's a young, dynamic, 3-level scorer alongside Devin Booker, I think, who has shown out as a point guard, as the lead guy in this entire team. I still think they need a playmaker. They need someone to take over so Booker can create more as a 2. But I do still think Booker can live at the 1, and I think he's done well at the 1. I think once Bradley Beal is moved from this team, Jalen Green's going to explode. He's going to play his same ball that he played this year. The Rockets were the 2 seed in the West, and he played a big part in that. Dylan Brooks, I think, is another really good piece for the Suns here because they need a wing. They need a 3-and-D wing. They need more of them because they do not have a lot of them. Right now, Ryan Dunn is their starting 4 or their starting 3. And no bueno. That is not bueno. So we are going to see how that fit ends up going. We'll also see what I think the Suns are going to do with their 10th pick later on in the stream. But the Phoenix Suns kicking off a exciting offseason, one that Shams has pretty much hyped up as being one of the best that he's ever covered, maybe the most exciting in his career. We will see how that goes, but I'm very, very excited to see what this Durant fit is for Houston. I think it's a great fit for both of these teams. If I were to give a grade, talking about Phoenix, I would probably give it a B+ just because you are still giving up on Kevin Durant, and I don't think this is something that really sends you to the stratosphere. Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets, I would give the Rockets an A. I'm not going to give it A+ because, honestly, it's been a while since Kevin Durant has competed for a championship. But I do still think Durant can be a very, very big contributor for the Houston Rockets. They've got such a dynamic starting 5 now. Assuming he ends up being the guy, what you could be looking at the back end of all of this is Reed Shepherd, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, oh my God, I almost said Green. Jabari Smith and Alperen Şengün being your starting five. That is an amazing starting five. I don't know if they are quite ready to go all in. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that this team is going to make the finals or be very competitive, because I do know that the NBA is the NBA. It's going to be very, very competitive. And the West is still as competitive as ever. But I do know this Rockets team has a really, really good shot at repeating the same magic they had this year, extending their coach in Ime Udoka. I think the Rockets are well on their way to having one of the best seasons in their franchise history if everybody stays healthy. Everything works out. If this fit is as good as everyone is projecting it to, as I'm projecting it to. This is a former MVP, two-time finals MVP, perennial talent, generational talent. You can't go wrong with a guy like Kevin Durant, especially with the ball that he's still playing at his age. It's phenomenal. Now, the Wizards are in news. And it's not because Chris Middleton picked up his player option. Let's talk about the most recent news here. Let's talk about Jordan Poole getting shipped off to the New Orleans Pelicans. What a shocking move from a compensation standpoint, but not shocking for me. I was not shocked at all seeing that Jordan Poole was being moved. Now, am I shocked at the timing? A little bit. But if I'm being honest, CJ McCollum isn't the worst get back. Because if we are looking at what CJ McCollum has been throughout his career, I mean, this is still a guy that was a 20-point per game scorer last year. This is a guy that can contribute at a high level still. I feel like has just been put in terrible, terrible situations throughout his career, only having a couple of really, really good stints. But when you compare the production of these two guys, yes, CJ is 33 years old, but he's still a 20-point per game scorer. He is a better playmaker than what most people would give him, and he's a more efficient scorer than Jordan Poole. Historically, he has been a more productive scorer, and last year he was more productive and he was more efficient. So I think if we're worried about production here, which I don't think we are, it's good. And I think CJ McCollum is a really, really good piece to bring in and flip at the deadline. However, let's not breeze past the fact that we are losing a young asset in Jordan Poole. And I hate that. I really do hate that, because I liked Poole, but I don't hate why we are doing it. We are committed to the future. And Jordan Poole, at age 26, just had his career year. Just had his career year in points. But this was not a guy that was averaging 30 points per game. 30 minutes per game. On a tanking team, this man was averaging under 30 points per game. And I think if Jordan Poole isn't going to average 30 points last year, he's not going to average 30 points this year. I think what Dawkins, what Keefe, depending on who our head coach is next year, when all of this is said and done, we're going to be looking at Bub Carrington is taking over, AJ Johnson is taking over, whoever we draft at 6, more to come on that, is taking over, and we are looking at a defensive savvy front court with Keyshawn George at the 4 and Sarr at the 5. We've also got a pretty good amount of cap space in 2026. Similar to what the Commanders did to build their playoff roster, the Commanders had bank. They had bank, and they capitalized on it and developed high-level talent, and they came out as a high-level team. I'm not saying the Wizards are going to go out there and make the Eastern Conference Finals next year, but this is a team that is going to draft a good talent nonetheless with that top 6 overall pick. I think it is a good enough draft class where I can comfortably say that whoever the Wizards get is going to be very productive. I have confidence in that, because the guys that we show a lot of promise in are not guys to come in and fit alongside guys. They are guys that, hey, we're going to give you all the minutes in the world to develop. We're going to give you all the minutes in the world to take over, and you are going to try and be the centerpiece of what our future is. Jordan Poole was not that. It was made abundantly clear that he was not that. And now that Poole, alongside Sadiq Bey, who, was injured all year last year, didn't do anything for us. Shipped off alongside the 40th overall pick. I mean, I'm not really too heartbroken over that. We get CJ McCollum, we get Kelly Olynyk, we get a future second-round pick. Those are guys I'm very, very confident can be flipped around for first-rounders next year. I'm very confident in that. Whether we do that or not, it is all determined. But I do think we've got a very interesting offseason ahead of us. For the Washington Wizards, I think this is a good move. It's not a phenomenal move. It's not an A. I think this is a solid B. You're getting a good veteran guy to come in and have some of these younger guards learn from. And we're also looking at the end of the day, you're trying to open up room for the guys on your bench. This is a fantastic move if I'm Bub Carrington. If I am Bub Carrington and I'm looking at this, I am twiddling. Whoa! Hold on. We just got massive news. We just got massive news. Let me pull this up. We are on the topic of shams, and we just got massive news. Boston, Atlanta, Brooklyn, Kristaps Porzingis to the Hawks. Terrence Mann and Atlanta's 22 to the Nets, and Georges Niang and a second rounder to the Celtics. Wow. Holy crap. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't even get my grades on the Poole trade. Wizards, I'd give like a B. Pelicans, I'd give like a B+. I think Poole can go in and be a phenomenal six-man of the year contender on that roster. He's probably going to start behind DeJounte Murray unless they use him as a two-guard. But, I mean, let's talk about this. Look, it's not as big as I probably made it out to be, if we're being honest. But this is someone that they gave up a lot for. And I do want to bring up what Kristaps Porzingis was traded for. If we look back to what the Wizards gave him up, and it was a pretty hefty penny. I don't know what specifically this move does for the Hawks. I don't know what that means. But I mean, they have guys that are on cheaper deals, so Porzingis makes sense. And if he's healthy, that really projects that team to be a very entertaining team next year. We're thinking of an offensive lineup of Kristaps Porzingis at the 5 or the 4, Onyeka Okongwu at the center position. We've got maybe Jalen Johnson at the 3. Now that DeAndre Hunter's gone, he kind of filled into that role really well. And then Trae Young and Dyson Daniels, who played like a defensive player of the year last year. Very, very entertaining squad. I like this move a lot for Atlanta. If you're going to go out and all you're going to give up is Terrence Mann and the 22 pick, and you go out and get a guy that contributed to a ring in one of the greatest teams of the modern era with the Boston Celtics from the previous year, his injury problems are apparent. When it came to the finals, he was not a massive part in that. But let's not be mistaken here that Kristaps Porzingis was a part of that roster that ended up bringing that championship to Boston. And it makes sense because the Boston Celtics are still well under the second apron, or well above, whatever the term is. So it makes a lot of sense for the Celtics to come in here and get a role player in Georges Niang. They got a second rounder. It's kind of shocking that they didn't get a first out of Kristaps Porzingis because, granted, yes, again, he was hurt. He was hurt a lot last year. And I think not having him hurt the Celtics more than anything. But this is still a guy that is a 20-point-per-game scorer. This is still a guy that can shoot 50, can give you a pretty good rebounding total every single night that he is healthy. Again, it's a big if. But if we're looking back at what the Celtics gave up, the Celtics got Porzingis, the 25th pick in the 2023 draft, and a 2024 first-round pick, which ended up being top 4 protected, which I think they got from the Warriors. And they gave up Marcus Smart, Danilo Gallinari, the 35. I think they gave up Mike Muscala as well. They didn't give up a lot. They tried to buy in on Kristaps Porzingis at the highest rate that they could. You know, Marcus Smart was coming off a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. So looking back to what they got from this trade, obviously it's less. they gave up more to get Porzingis than what they got back. If I'm the Celtics, obviously your roster got worse here. I probably would have tried to hunt for a better pick. I'd say the Celtics is probably at around like a B minus. Because they're getting Georges and the second rounder, and they couldn't manage to get their hands on that 22nd pick. Kind of shocking how Brooklyn just came out of this with Terrence Mann and Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's pick. That's kind of shocking. So I think the Nets have 4 picks now. I would say for the Hawks, I'd probably give this about a B. The Nets, you got a free first rounder. I'd probably give it about a B. I'll say B's all around. For the Celtics, it makes sense. You're getting rid of a guy that wasn't healthy last year, keeps you under the second apron. Shocking that it would come this early. I would have expected it to be a little bit into the offseason. Atlanta is a very interesting fit, but we will see how that rounds out. But it's a pretty lateral trade in my view. But I do think it's the best fit. And if we're judging based on who specifically would win, I would say the Hawks would probably win this just because they've got that pick. But who knows what the Nets do with this 22? Because the Nets have got a lot. They've got a lot now. Because looking at this draft class, hold on, I've got to look at what the picks are. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they try to bundle that pick to get something else. Because, I mean, they've really only got Cam Thomas and Cameron Johnson. And Cam Thomas is a restricted free agent. So they could use that to go somewhere else and shop it and try to get something out of it. I'm pulling up Tankathon here to see what all picks they do have. Yes. They sent KP in a second for Georges in a second. Wow. Yeah, I can't give that a B. I can't give that a B, man. I just can't. I mean, Georges is good role player, but I mean, Porzingis, he's a guy that can still average 20, like very easily could still average 20. Yeah, the Nets have 5 first round picks. Some of those are definitely getting moved. So yeah. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with a C. I think I didn't even realize that they gave up a second too. I thought they just gave up K Porzy. Wow. That's rough, man. That's really rough. But yeah, breaking trade right there. We've got one more to get through. I don't even know if I'm going to talk about this or show it and all, but we got Desmond Bane from Memphis to Orlando. I'm not even going to give that any. I mean, screw that. Does it really push Orlando? No. Does it really push Memphis? No. I think the compensation is a little off. I would call it a D. The only reason I wouldn't call the trade a D, I would go with the C, is because they needed to make it. They couldn't go into next season with the whole second apron that they were kind of trapped under. That's why they got rid of Giroux, and now they got rid of Kristaps Porzingis. So it kind of silences the rumors that Jaylen Brown could be moved away from. But I don't think that was going to happen at all because they don't have Jason Tatum for a very, very long time next year. So we will see if the Celtics try to make any moves to pivot next season into. They're kind of in the same move in the same world that the Pacers are, but the Pacers have a more well-rounded team than the Celtics do right now because the Celtics have played through their payroll. The second apron's catching up to them. I don't know. It's very interesting. I am kind of dumbfounded that they didn't get a first round pick. I'm kind of dumbfounded that they didn't get a first round pick. Why did I give that a B? Yeah, that's a C. That's a C, dude. Oof. Yeah. All right. So the next thing that was right next to OKC, right next to the draft, was OKC winning their title. I think that's already kind of been played. I'm not even going to talk about the title. we know what that team was. One of the better teams in recent memory. This was a team that was dominant in the regular season, dominant in the postseason, took Indiana to 7. So, good job, Shea. Good job, J-Dub. J-Dub was a guy that I pretty much was made into a fan. Was the trade more for a salary dump? Yes, it was a salary dump because they have a lot of money. So I'll just go ahead and go into it. So with the NBA introducing the aprons, so the Celtics have been the number one name thrown around about the second apron. So what this does is there are penalties that come with the luxury tax. When you're over the luxury tax, there's certain penalties. And there are more penalties that come with the second luxury tax apron. So from what some of the people have said, and I'll lay it out, I'll show you what I'm reading off of. What some of the people have said is that some of the what could happen to Boston is so severe that it can't happen. Grussberg sitting here predicted no team would stay above the threshold for more than 2 seasons over the next 40 years. The Celtics roster needed to change. And with some of these, I'll try to see what the penalties are, what they were facing. So the Celtics way over the second apron. So with this, an example given by the league in the oh my God. Oh, so they would have been fined and taxed So the Celtics would have lost a lot of money. If the Celtics were to keep the team intact, their tax bill alone would likely be more than what the actual salaries cost. SpotTrack estimating that the Celtics would have to pay north of $238 million in luxury taxes to keep the team together. And if they didn't, then I don't think they would be allowed to play because that's how the luxury tax works. First apron, no sign-in trades are allowed if the player acquired keeps the team above the apron. The second apron, all first apron penalties. So you cannot sign players that make more than the mid-level exception, and salary matching in trades has to be within 110%. So you can't make certain trades. You can't do sign-in trades. You can't do a lot of very big things that goes into building championship rosters. With the second apron, you can't use the mid-level exception at all. First-round picks from 7 years out cannot be traded. You cannot use cash-in trades, and first-round picks automatically moves to the back of the first round if the team stays in the second apron 3 out of 5 years. So if you are terrible and you are under the second apron, they're just you can't do certain contracts. You can't make certain trades. Your first-round picks are practically second, so you're practically getting all of your first-round picks negated because you're throwing them at the bottom every single time. There's just so much that you can't do, plus all of the financial hits that would happen to the team. The franchise itself would not be able to really survive. So Drew Holiday's gone. Kristaps Porzingis is gone. Derek White is the next one that a lot of people are looking at potentially being moved. So that could still be moved to give them a little bit more room to build a salary next year. But what we are looking at is we are looking at 2 defensive savvy guards that could be traded. One of them already has been to the Portland Trail Blazers, and Kristaps Porzingis, who was their final all-in piece a couple of years back to win that championship. They got the championship. Now they got to deal with the consequences of paying that much money to people. So we will see how this works out. Very, very interesting situation unfolding. Pretty much nothing to show for the last 2 seasons. How can you win a chip and then the team almost fall apart? And Tatum is probably almost out for half. Yeah, exactly. So Tatum being out next year, they have to build a roster that they can at least be confident with, or because you got to think, or it's like, okay, well then just tank. Well, now Jaylen Brown's morale is down because he went from winning a championship a couple of years back to now he's tanking. Now he doesn't want to be there. So it's more so kind of balancing team morale, balancing the franchise's success overall. And I do think this is a massive, massive fault to the guys that are running the show, the guys that bought the Celtics a couple of years back. So they've still got some work to do. And there are some massive, massive implications that that will come out of this entire first apron, second apron thing. but they could look to get back some of it with the draft. Now, tomorrow, I don't know if I'm going to be going live and reacting to the draft. I might not. I don't know if I'll get home in time from work. Hopefully I do. But we're going to go through this entire first round. With all of these trades sent in, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that when we get to the 22nd pick, that pick is traded. So if I don't do that, somebody please remind me. But here we go. We have the hardest pick of all time to make here. It's Cooper Flag. I'm not even going to waste time talking about these first two picks because we know what they're going to be. It's Cooper Flag. It's Dylan Harper. Now, with the Philadelphia 76ers, a lot of people are talking about the Sixers still going with Ace Bailey. I think Ace Bailey drops out of the top 5 because what you are doing and what his camp is doing is so detrimental to his pre-draft process that it is going to hurt him for the long haul. I think he's got a really good shot of dropping out of the top 5. I don't necessarily know if a team would trade up because of that. I am very, very confident that the 76ers are going with VJ Edgecombe. This is a guy that is all over the place. Athletic freak. He is someone that can finish at a very, very high level, is a very effective mid-range shooter, not that great from beyond the arc. I do think the overall jump shot needs some refinement at the league level, but he's a good rebounding guard. I think he has shown some chops as a playmaker. Definitely not the guy that I would look towards as a playmaker. But you got to think this is a starting lineup that's going to look like Jared McCain when he comes back, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George is getting another shot. I don't know who they have going at the 4. That could be determined in free agency. But we do know that the plan 5 is Joel Embiid. But you never know with Joel. Victor Oladipo is a really good comp for him because he is that high-level athlete. I don't think he's got quite the defense that prime Oladipo did. God, man, Oladipo on the Pacers was such a dog. And I think the Sixers would take that. With a guy like him on a rookie deal that can contribute year 1 but will likely be a bigger piece for them as that core of Maxey. I'm not even considering Embiid in this core anymore because the future is Maxey, it's McCain, it's this pick. And I think Edgecombe is a really, really good, so many similarities between the two. There is. The only thing, I like Oladipo's jumper a little bit better. I think Oladipo's a little bit better shooter. I think was a little bit better shooter coming out of college. It looked a little bit more natural. Maybe didn't click in the NBA. VJ Edgecombe, I think, has got some things that he needs to refine with his technique, especially with his jump shot. Sometimes it looks like he can shoot off rhythm, but it is kind of overlooked with how fluid of an athlete he is. So, pick your battles when you can win them. I think that this pick is being traded. I think if we are looking at the team that wants this the most, I'm going to go with the Brooklyn Nets. I said that if this, I should have said that if this stays the same, that I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to trade up. I think the Brooklyn Nets would trade up if they're sitting there because they know that 5 and 6 are taking Ace Bailey. If the Jazz don't take him, the Wizards are definitely take him. He's not falling to 8. If you're re-signing Cam Johnson, if you've got you've got Cam Johnson already under contract. You're not re-signing him. You're re-signing Cam Thomas most likely this offseason. I do think the Nets would make this move. It's a no-brainer. I'm going to send the 27th. Let's say since they're moving up just 4 slots, I'm going to send the 27th and have them swap second rounders. But they are going to get 2 firsts and a second for a first and a second. I think that's fair enough. We're going to have the Nets move up, and they're going to take the shot on Ace Bailey. They need somebody that can rock that rim, and Ace Bailey can rock it, and he can run it better than anybody in this draft class. The ceiling is sky high. Fluid jump shot. A very impressive shooter for a guy of his size, even if he's not 6'10", he's 6'7" without shoes. I do still think he can be a tenacious rebounder coming off the wing. And with him having the shooting help of Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson on the wing, this is a guy that's not going to be looked at as a 25 shot per game rookie like he really wants to be. He might be that in Washington if he falls that far. I highly, highly doubt it. I can almost guarantee that's not going to happen. But I do think the Nets move up. They make him their second, their third option, and he can really explode. The Nets, the Pelicans, and the Wizards are their main, are Bailey's Camp's main options when it comes to their best fits. I do think the Nets is a home run. I think the Wizards would be a grand slam, but I don't think the Wizards are going to move up for this pick. I think they would have to go get Ace. I don't think if you're the Hornets and you're looking at those three guys going, I think VJ Edgecombe is the Hornets guy. I think they can move out. Oh, no, we can't get Con Kneppel at 4. Cool. You can move down and get a guy that can fit in a lot better with your guys. Makes a lot of sense for the Nets to go out and do this because that's superstar level potential. And I'm going to go with some more superstar level potential. I'm going to go with Jeremiah Fears. I think Utah is in love with both Fears and Bailey, probably equally. And they would have a pretty tough pick on their hands if both of these guys fall to 5. And I think what Utah does is going to be very dependent on what Trey Johnson does. Because I don't think Trey Johnson is a great fit for Utah. I've seen some people mock it. I think if Trey doesn't go to the Sixers, if the Hornets don't stick at 4 and go with Trey Johnson, I just don't see what his fit is with Brandon Miller. I don't think Utah goes Trey. I think Fears and Bailey are the two guys that they're going with. They need someone that can come in and be a dynamic playmaker. Fears is just that. He is a floor general. He is a very, very good athlete around the rim. He can pass the ball better than probably most people on that Utah team right now. Isaiah Collier is a passer that really intrigues me, but I do think he's better off the bench. I think Fears comes in immediately, maybe has Collier come in and take some reps at the 1 and then ends up getting that starting role. You've got really good offensive options around you. Keyshawn George is someone that can play the 1 or the 2. So Fears is a guy that you might be able to run alongside George, but if they do end up going with Fears, which it does seem like that's a prospect they really like, might end up looking at a guy like Sexton being moved because of his contract and because he would be a better fit somewhere else. Wouldn't be shocked if Sexton is moved, maybe even on draft night. But I do think if that is the pick there, then it is Jeremiah Fears. And the Wizards just got rid of a very high caliber offensive player. Why not bring in arguably the best offensive player in this class in Trey Johnson? Almost a 20-point per game scorer, 0.1 points per game off from doing so. Such a fantastic 3-level scorer. Good around the rim, fantastic from mid-range, knockdown from 3. He's a guy that can get. Does Clarkson move to the bench? I would say Clarkson gets moved to the bench. If we're talking about overtime, maybe not immediately, but I think it's a fight between Clarkson and Collier for that number 1 role. I would say they probably end up leaning with Collier because I do like the playmaking aspect, and you've already got so much offense there. You're not going to run Clarkson at the 3. You're not going to run Sexton at the 3. So I think that 2 is pretty much won by Sexton, and I like the energy that Sexton plays with better. But then again, that's why I think Sexton's going to get moved. I think if Sexton gets moved, then they can play around with those guard positions a little bit more. That Utah roster is going to make more changes than just bringing in Jeremiah Fears. But with Trey Johnson to Washington, you got rid of Jordan Poole. You pretty much got Jordan Poole 2.0. What you're getting with him, you're getting a guy that is all offense. Not great defense. He is not that good of a defender. But when you've got guys like Bilal, when you've got Keyshawn George, Justin, Champagnie, I think that's how you say his last name, was a really, really good wing defender in my opinion. And I also think, Alex Sarr is going to take a massive stride with his defense next year because he already showed so many flashes. And he was already among some of the better shot-blocking big men in his rookie year. I think he can continue to make that stride. The defense, I don't think will be as big of a problem for a rebuilding team. And Trey Johnson is going to come in and do all of this off the bench because you've got CJ McCollum in there now. You've got Kelly Olynyk getting involved with that rotation. You're going to have McCollum come in, try to teach all these young guards the most that they can, and hop right back out. At the end of the season, we are probably going to be seeing a lineup with, Chris Middleton might end up starting. I don't love it. Chris Middleton might end up being the starter. They might end up running McCollum at the 1 if they keep him after the deadline. He could end up being the 1. If we keep McCollum, it'll probably be McCollum, maybe Bub or Bilal, depending on which better fit is. I think Bub is a little bit better off the bench with this lineup. I would say probably McCollum, Bilal, I don't think we're going to be able to get rid of Middleton. I don't think anyone's going to be buyers unless he really shows out. We might be able to move him. If it's my world and we're able to move on from all those old players, if this was my GM, I would get all the assets that I can out of those old guys and have my final starting lineup be Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, Alexander Sarr. Because why not? Justin Champagnie, I think, is a great piece off the bench. I think A.J. Johnson could be a great 1 or 2 off the bench for you as well. And then you've got some other guys you're going to get. You're going to get another guy with the 18 here, and you could move up. With all the vets that they're bringing in, I think that's pretty much the only role that they're going to fill is mentors. And right after the Wizards, we've got Jordan Poole's new home over here with the Pelicans pick. I have no idea what they could go with here because now I think they've got too many guards. I think they had too many guards before. So now, do you go with a defensive savvy big man, a high upside big man, or do you go with the guy that is a gifted offensive big man in Derek Queen? I don't think this is the spot for Queen. I think Kaman Maluach is a perfect day 1 prospect to kind of look towards year 2 and year 3. I don't think this is a guy that's going to come in and really rock anyone's world in year 1. But behind Yves Messi, I think he's a very good complementary big man, somebody that you're looking to move into that starting lineup. Yes, this is a guy that, was pretty much silent during the Final Four for Duke, but I do still think the upside is there. He tested really well at the Combine. Everyone in New Orleans seems to be pointing towards either going up and getting Bailey, which I don't think they go out and get it. I think Kaman Maluach is the guy. And I think they need to capitalize on their defense as much as they can because they got plenty of offense, especially with the moves of, potentially still moving DeJounte Murray, potentially moving Zion Williamson that's getting thrown out now. We don't know what's going to go on with New Orleans. So at least you get a guy that you can develop into a high upside big man like Maluach. With the Hornets, they traded down from the 4. They traded to the 8. And look who's still here. Con Kneppel. It's the guy they probably would have picked at 8. At 4, they've been connected to him this entire time. I don't think he is a top 5 prospect. I don't think he is a top 4 prospect. I think this is a good fit for him nonetheless. I just don't see why the Hornets wouldn't trade out of that pick with the amount of confidence that they could get. And even if they don't get Khan, they could go out and get Igor Demon and be a great person to learn from LaMelo Ball. Kasper Jakušionis is another guy that could be a good playmaker, but you're not worried about playmakers when it comes to Con Kneppel. You're worried about a guy that can score at all 3 levels and, be a formidable 2-way guy on the perimeter. We see what the value of 2-way guys can be in Jalen Williams. I think Con Kneppel is that archetype of player, definitely not my player comp for him, but he is that 2-way archetype guy that you're looking to come in and just overall complement your 2 main stars in Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. Toronto, I think this is a perfect spot for a big man to go. I also think this is a perfect spot for someone along the edge. There's been a lot of talk about Emmanuel Quickley being moved around. There's been a lot of talk about RJ Barrett being moved around, so they could end up going with the guard. However, Grady Dick was a guy that kind of exploded last year. I thought Grady Dick was playing surprisingly good ball in his second year. And I don't think they shy away from some of the flashes that you saw with him. I also don't think you shy away from someone like Jacoby Walter, who I still think could be a high upside guy. I don't know if they would prefer going with Queen over a developmental guard or a playmaking guard. I think with the likelihood that Quickley or Barrett is moved, I think they do go with the guard here. And I really like them going with Igor Demon. Demon has been a guy, another kind of similar to Maluach, not super productive in college, but showed a lot of flashes. Gifted playmaker at 6'9", very lanky guard, can move all around the wing, can guard 1 through 4 if you ask him to. But this is your 1. This is your 2 that you're going to develop over the next couple of years. Toronto's in a very weird middle spot. I think Demon can be, if they go out and get a big piece, I think Demon can be a perfect bench point guard to develop and slowly turn into your point guard of the future. And I think it's a risk they're willing to make at 9 compared to some of these other guys that will probably contribute just as much as he will off the bench or in their starting lineup. Because your main core is Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes. Those are your main scorers. You're seeing what you get out of RJ Barrett. I don't know if they're going to trade him or quickly, but whichever offense they're losing in that, I think Igor Demon is going to contribute to filling in for that void. But nonetheless, you're not going to bring in a prospect there to fill in offensively. That's why I shy away from guys like Carter Bryant, who I've seen thrown around. Noah Essendje, I think, is just a little too raw for them at 9. But I wouldn't be shocked if a team like the Suns, who need development, go with someone like Noah Essendje. But I brought him up earlier as a very good offensive big man, and an offensive big man might not be their biggest need, but you can't help but look away from Derek Queen here if you're the Phoenix Suns. Derek Queen has a lot of that mid-range, under-the-rim shot-creating ability we saw from DeAndre Ayton in school. I wouldn't say that's necessarily my comp because I think DeAndre Ayton was a little bit better of a defender. But he's got a rare handle for his size, very fluid mover, very effective guy in the clutch for the Terrapins this past year. I think he can come in and be a great fourth option for the Phoenix Suns. Assuming that, probably Dylan Brooks ends up being their starting 3. I still think Queen would be the fourth option, but he could develop into the third option for them. But he's not the second or the first, depending on whoever's there at their 2 starting guard positions. Those are going to be the guys. Portland, I believe they still own this pick. Portland does still own this pick. All the trades that have gone down, I'm having to keep up as I'm going along. I've got Shams over here, just looking at it. Yeah. Nets have 5 picks officially. Did I just see that Jello made the XXL freshman class? He did. What in the world? First off, who still pays attention to that? But what do you know? What do you know? LiAngelo Ball, XXL freshman. Blazers must draft Coward. I think it's very interesting. I don't think so. If you are a big Coward guy, I don't think I would go with Coward over Colin Murray-Boyles. I don't think I would go with Coward over Carter Bryant. Carter Bryant might have the best three-point shot in this draft class. That man is a smooth shooter. A lot of what I said last year with guys like, I can't remember. I think it was Johnny Furphy, a guy like Tyler Smith too, which both of those guys really didn't do anything last year. So I don't know if this really has much volume. But Carter Bryant is a guy that was not given a lot of opportunities with Arizona, but he is your go-to set up and shoot guy. Coward could be a really good piece for you off the bench. And I think that's what Carter Bryant would end up being. I just think the upside is there, the development is there, and that's a shot that you got to take because with guys like that, that's how you end up creating Jalen Williams. That's how you end up creating. I'm trying to think of another guy. That's how you end up creating. Desmond Bane wasn't that highly talented of a prospect, and now he didn't need to get traded for 5 first-rounders. But he was a guy that was contributing to a very, very talented Grizzly team just a couple of years back. That's how you get some of these guys that end up developing into that. And yes, both of those guys weren't picked as high as 11, but Jalen Williams was at 12, and everyone thought that was an overdraft. And I think people could think that Carter Bryant is an overdraft, but I just don't see it because now it's come to how well can you develop. And Portland, I think, is developed. I think they developed really, really well, and especially with Denny as your main guy there. I think Denny as a playmaker can open up some of these young guys to come in and be a pretty good shooter. For the Chicago Bulls, I think would be a really, really good place for Kasparis Jakušionis to land. But I think all of that lands on if they end up re-signing Josh Giddey. If Josh Giddey stays in Chicago, I think they lean away from point guard. I don't know what the reports are coming out of Giddey's camp, but from what I know, the Bulls still want to get him in a Chicago jersey. So I'm going to assume that a point guard is not going to be the move here. I'm going to go with Colin Murray-Boyles, a very good defensive wing that can get it done under the rim. A little bit undersized, yes, but I do think he is Patrick Williams without the cost of Patrick Williams. That's what his game reminds me the most of, but at a little bit heightened level offensively, and he's shown a little bit more at South Carolina. For Atlanta, do they have this pick? They do have this pick still. Atlanta does still have this pick. I didn't know if that was involved in the trade, but no, because Atlanta somehow – Boston somehow didn't get the 13th pick for Kristaps Porzingis. That's beyond me. But For Atlanta, I think it makes sense for them to go with some sort of wing. Definitely not a big now that they've got Kristaps Porzingis. I think Noah S&J is a great guy here. I think he makes a lot of sense as a developmental guy. He's someone that you could probably send off to the G League like they did with Dyson Daniels to start his career. Very, very high upside guy. Very, very great. Very, very great. Jesus, great grammar there, Brett. But very good athlete with S&J there. I don't even know if that's how you say his last name, but that's how I'm saying it. The Spurs sitting at 14. I think with some of the guys that are after them, there are some guys that would take swings on Jakusionis. That I don't think the Spurs are one of them. I think he's fallen a little bit too far for some teams' comforts. And I think one of those teams are going to end up being the Wizards. This is something that I have mocked a lot. I'm just going to have a future second rounder probably. Let's say that's all they need. A future second rounder, maybe some sort of role player. Hell, do you want Chris Middleton? We'll give Chris Middleton to you for the 14th pick. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think a move up here to get either Nolan Traore, Jace Richardson, or Kasparas Jakusionis. That again, this is a lot of the same. Okay, I really, really like the playmaking of Jakusionis, kind of similar to what I did like with Isaiah Collier, and we traded up to get Bub Carrington. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a move to go get Nolan. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a move to go get Jace. I really wouldn't be shocked if this is a move to go get Hugo Gonzalez for some reason. But he's a guy that has been shooting up some people's boards. I pray it's not ours. I think we just go up, make the right move, make the smart move, and get I don't really know if he's that, cracked out of a white boy. But you know what I'm saying. A guy that can get it done. A guy that can get it done. A little bit more fun prospect over there. And they need as many guards as they can get, because that is another guy that is just going to sit there and develop and develop and develop. And that's all Washington needs right now. That's how OKC got to where they are. I think a lot of what Washington is going through right now, they're trying to replicate that success with what OKC did this year, because Will Dawkins is from that tree. He's from that Sam Presti tree. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Washington trades up to get a guy that they don't necessarily need because they've got an abundance of wings, but in the future they're going to need them. CJ McCollum is not getting extended. Chris Middleton's not getting extended. So these are guys that are going to fit into the long-term plan. Dawkins has incredible patience that this team has not seen in decades. So it would be kind of relieving to see this move be made. With the Thunder, they're probably a little mad because Jakusionis went up there, but they've also got a guy that I'm still very, very in on in Nikola Topic, that was the first player in NBA history to win a championship without playing a single minute in the NBA season. How insane is that? I'm more than, I was about to say, I think that's what it was. That or he didn't play anything in the regular season. But I believe, yeah. He didn't play a single minute because of that ACL injury. So that's kind of insane. I don't know if that's the history I would like to make, but very, very interesting situation playing out there. I think with this, you're just looking to get a guy that is going to be developmental, but I can't help but look at the fit of Rasheer Fleming, and that archetype of player it fits right in. 3-and-D guy, a very good three-point shooter with St. Joseph's. Fits a lot with OKC's culture. Memphis, they got this pick from Desmond Bane, one of the many first-round picks that they got. And I do think they bring in the perfect Bane replacement. Maybe not the perfect guy to bring in, but I think Jace Richardson is a very, very good option here for Memphis. I like his offensive game a lot. I like his three-level ability. He needs to, I think, just get more opportunity and just get in. But, Jason Richardson's son, Jace, is someone that I think could be a big-time contributor in Memphis, filling in on that bench role. I mean, who knows? He's a guy whose offensive bag has such high potential in my eye that he could end up being a starter. Probably not year one, but he can be a contributor for sure. Minnesota, I think they'll go alongside the same wing philosophy with Memphis. I think they'll pivot over to small forward. And I think, where is he? Where did he go? Is he not a small forward? Is he a power forward? Where is he? Oh, maybe he's a shooting guard. He's a shooting guard. I'm going to go with Cedric Coward here. I think Coward is experienced enough to come in and be a big-time contributor off the bench, and I think they need that. I think they do need a little bit of offense off the bench when their starting lineup ain't doing it. And some of the games that they didn't win kind of followed along with that trend that they had guys off the bench that was outperforming their starting lineup. So I think if that is going to happen, you need a little bit more volume with some of the scores off your bench so you can have even better backup for when your starting lineup starts to fizz out. And I think Coward is a great fit in there for Minnesota in the system that they build. You could look towards Nick Clifford. I think Walter Clayton would do very well in Minnesota. Will Riley, I think a little bit too raw for their taste. I don't think he's a overtly raw prospect, but I do think for what they need someone to come in and have that confidence in him to handle the ball. I think I have a little bit more confidence in Coward rather than Will Riley. With the San Antonio Spurs, I think they go with a guy that shouldn't be here, in my opinion, and Asa Newell. Asa Newell is someone that is going to be a very good rotational big. A lot of his game and what he can do underneath the rim reminds me a lot of Derek Lively. I think this is a guy that's got really high potential as a rotational big alongside Wemby. He already got plenty to learn. He fits right in. That was a guy they were probably going to take at 14 anyways. Same thing with what the Hornets did to get Con Kneppel, moving down from 4 to 8. I think they moved down from 14 to 18 and get their guy. And the Nets, one of their many, many picks, they probably would have ended up trading more than this, but they traded up to get Ace Bailey, but they've still got this 9th overall pick. I think they would have to go with another wing because they need to bolster that wing. But when I look at their center rotation, it's not that. It doesn't really jump out to me. But then again, they do have another one. So do you think Sorber's going to make it down to 26? I think he could. Do you think Liam McNeely's going to fall that far? Maybe not. Do you think Nick Clifford's going to fall that far? Do you think Walter Clayton's going to fall that far? He might. That's some people have projected that to be around the range where he'll go. I think a backup point guard, maybe even a starting point guard with the lack of guys that you have on contract would be great. And Nolan Traore is the perfect guy to bring in. You brought in a French guard last year, but I don't think Killian Hayes is the future. So I think this would be a great fit for him to sit there and learn behind some really good offensive guys and also get into a system that he's not expected to go out there and move worlds in. I think it's a great fit for Brooklyn. At night, he might still be there at 26, but I think somebody would take a shot on Traore. So I'll go with him over a big, even though, in my opinion, that's their biggest need. And they would likely be missing out on a guy like Joan Behringer, who could go to Miami here. I do know that their bench big rotation isn't that great. I mean, you've got an older Kevin Love, but I don't even think he's he is under contract for next year. And then you also got Nikola Jovic that's under contract for next year. I think they would lean towards a wing, and I think Liam McNeely feels like the most Miami Heat pick here. It just makes a lot of sense for me. It makes too much sense because I don't know how great of a finisher he is in my eyes. I mean, he can do it. He can necessarily do that. But I do think he's going to be more of a spot up guy that can create with the ball in his hand if called upon. Utah went with the point guard earlier in the draft. I think they go with the center here in Joan Behringer, more developmental, high value athlete, low value when it comes to the floor of this guy. But I do think Utah would take a risk on someone like that. The Atlanta Hawks do not own this pick anymore. This would actually go, I believe this one, did I put it into the trade earlier? I don't know if the Nets would pick with this pick. I'm going to say that this pick probably is going to stay with the Nets. So let's have the Nets, I don't know, let's give the 36 pick away just for this case because we need to trade something. But I do think the Nets would pick here again. And they would probably go with Sorber because why not? The Pelicans, going with Kaman Maluach earlier, they could double up on bigs. I wouldn't be shocked. I do think they're going to go with someone on the wing. And someone that I think could fit in maybe is Will Riley. Nick Clifford's got good offense, but if I'm looking at someone, I'm going to try to find someone that gives you that good defense off the bench. But I don't know if I would take a swing at 23 for that. So maybe they end up shopping this pick. For now, I'm going to have them go with Nick Clifford because of the experience. Would fit in with an experienced roster. We're getting into the back end of this first round with the NBA champion, Oklahoma City Thunder, picking at 24. I mean, they went with Rasheer Fleming earlier. I think now they could go with someone that's a little bit more developmental. But how can you not look at what you've got in both Will Riley or Walter Clayton and look away from him? I think Walter Clayton is the perfect Oklahoma City Thunder. He's the perfect guy. Coming from a championship roster, going on to a championship roster, experienced, very, very aggressive, high motor guy, fits right in with their culture. With the Orlando Magic at 25, they gave up one of their earlier picks to go get Bane, but they do still keep this one. I think they would undoubtedly go with a wing here, and I think Will Riley is that wing because he's going to be someone to come in and fill in for the role that you're just not getting out of Jet Howard because you overdrafted on him. He hasn't really worked out. So now you're going to go with a good, three-point shooter. I don't know how quick of a 3-and-D guy he'll become. He might just be the 3. He might not really have great D, but I don't think he's got bad defense. I think he's someone that can come in and contribute defensively, but definitely not move worlds defensively. The Brooklyn Nets, I think, would take a swing at a developmental guy here. I'm going to go with Hugo Gonzalez because of the upside playmaking that he does have and does possess. I think him and Nolan Traore, you create some natural competition as the lead playmaker off the bench. And who knows, maybe Nolan could play into the lead point guard role for Brooklyn, depending on who they bring in. For the Hornets, going with Khan earlier, they got this pick from that Nets trade when they traded down from 4. This gives them a little bit more room to play around on the wing. But do not be shocked when they come out and go with someone in the front court. Now, this is kind of me jumping between, okay, do they go with a front court move because they end up trading away Mark Williams? I'm not entirely sure. You're still trying to see if you can get anything out of TJ Salone. I don't think they're going to, but, that could be a bad take. I think they're going to bulk up at the wing. I'm going to go with Danny Wolf, just a solid body down below, and I think he's a guy that's going to fit right in with Mark Williams if he's in rotation or be fine. The Boston Celtics pick at 28 because they still didn't get a first rounder from Kristaps Porzingis. But with the Celtics, I mean, they've got to go with the big, right? They've got to go with the big. I'm going to go with something that's kind of fun. I'm going to go with someone that's kind of been shooting up boards. Han-Sen Yang. Han-Sen Yang, very high upside guy. I know there's going to be somebody in this chat that's going to freak out over that. But I don't know if he's Yao Ming too. I wouldn't necessarily say that because he doesn't have the size. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know that much about him. All I know is that NBA scouts have been bringing his name up a lot. He's been a guy that's been getting a lot of first round buzz. And as of right now, I'm like, fun name. That's a fun name. Han-Sen Yang is a fun name. So you know what? That's your new Boston Celtic. That's your Kristaps Porzingis replacement. Phoenix. They went with a big man earlier. I think this is a prime position for them to go with a guard. Develop one with Ben Saraf. Is that how you say his name? Look, if this guy's anything like the other Israel wing that came out a couple of years ago, I think he would take Denny Avdia 2.0. So hopefully he can end up being that for Phoenix. For the Clippers, I think when I look at this team, they need solid defense, not world-moving defense, but I do think they still need some solid defense on the wing. And if I'm looking at what they've got out here, they might be able to get that from Noah Penda. That's a French guy that is really, really unknown for me. Drake Powell, very low volume guy, but he does have some pretty intriguing traits as an athlete. I'm going to go with experience here with the Clippers. I'm going to go with Adu Thiero. I think this is a guy that is going to be a good force for them down low, maybe from the mid-range. High-level score for Arkansas with John Calipari, but gotten a lot of praise from Cal, and I think Thiero would come in and be a good rotational wing. And we've got the first 30 all knocked out. This is the full first round. I don't know how accurate this is going to look. If it's anything like last year, this is terrible. Cooper Flag could go 30 for all I know after last year. I mean, I was here and there with some of my picks last year, but hopefully this is a little more accurate. And guys, we got the NBA draft tomorrow. I'm excited. You should be excited. An exciting day, exciting couple of days to start this NBA offseason. And we are going to have plenty to talk about after tomorrow or on tomorrow. So make sure you've got those notifications turned on for when I do end up streaming again. And while you're down there, make sure you like the video, like the stream, whether you're watching it before or after. I appreciate you for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button while you're down there as well. And I will see y'all the next time I hop up there. Might be on tomorrow. Not entirely sure, but I do know this is going to be a very exciting draft. A lot of eyes, especially in DC, on what they're going to do with this draft. I know that might be me tooting my own team's horn, but they're already making moves, and I think they're going to make some moves tomorrow. So we will see how that ends up turning out. But I want to thank you guys for watching. As always, come around. The next time I'm up here, I'll see y'all then. Peace.